The war between Earth and the Xeran Empire had been long and brutal. Captain Elias, a seasoned soldier of Earth's elite forces, was part of a special mission to infiltrate the Xeran capital. His unit, composed of the best and brightest, was tasked with rescuing Earth's diplomats who had been captured during a peace negotiation gone wrong. But as soon as they entered Xeran space, things took a turn for the worse. The Xeran Empire had been preparing for Earth's attack. The aliens had developed new technologies, and their military strength was unmatched. Elias and his team had been betrayed. They were lured into a trap, and the moment they set foot on the planet, they were ambushed. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. The mission was supposed to be a quick strike, a rescue and retreat, but now it had turned into a massacre. Elias had fought back fiercely, but it was no use. The Xeran soldiers overwhelmed them with their superior strength and weapons. The last thing Elias remembered was the sound of his comrades falling around him. He had been struck down by an enemy blade, feeling the coldness of death creeping in. He thought it was over, but it wasn't. When Elias opened his eyes again, he was no longer on the battlefield. His wounds had healed, and the world around him felt different. It wasn't the harsh alien landscape of Xera that he remembered. Instead, he was lying in a strange, comfortable room, the soft light of a distant sun shining through a window. His body was whole, his wounds completely gone, but he didn't know how. Confusion filled his mind. Had he been captured? Was he in a Xeran prison? He tried to move, but his limbs felt unusually strong, as if he had been given a second chance. It wasn't possible. He remembered dying. He couldn't be alive. As he lay there, trying to make sense of everything, a figure entered the room. It was a woman. She looked human, but her eyes glowed with an intensity he had never seen before. She was tall, her dark hair flowing like water, and her presence seemed to command the air around her. "You're awake," she said, her voice calm but with an edge of authority. Elias sat up, alarmed. "Who are you?" he demanded. "Where am I?" The woman smiled faintly. "You're safe, Captain, for now." Elias frowned, scanning the room for any signs of a trap. "I don't remember. What happened to my team? The mission? The ambush? The—" Woman's expression darkened. "You were left behind. Your unit is gone, but you survived against all odds." Elias's heart sank. He had failed them. He remembered their faces, their voices, and how they had fought to the end. He thought they had all died. Yet here he was, alive. "What happened to me?" he asked again, his voice strained. The woman hesitated for a moment, then stepped closer as though unsure whether to share the truth. "You were saved by something you can't understand. Something beyond the reach of normal human technology. You've been given a gift, Captain. A second life." Elias shook his head. "This doesn't make sense. I was dead. I felt it. Woman's eyes softened. "You were supposed to be, but there's more to your survival than just chance." Before Elias could respond, the door to the room opened again. A new voice, this one cold and commanding, filled the air. "Enough with the pleasantries. We need answers, and we need them now." Elias turned toward the voice and saw a tall, regal figure entering the room. The woman's beauty was undeniable, but it was the power in her posture that struck him the most. Her dark eyes seemed to pierce through him, and the air in the room became tense. The woman who had been speaking to Elias stepped back, bowing slightly. "Your Majesty." Elias's heart skipped a beat. This was no ordinary alien. The woman before him was a queen, the Xeran queen. "You're not dead," the queen said, her voice colder than ice. "You were supposed to be." Elias stood, his body tense. "You should have finished the job when you had the chance." The queen's lips curled into a smile, but there was no warmth in it. "You humans never learn, do you? Always surviving, always fighting back. It's what makes you so infuriating. Elias took a step forward. Why didn't you kill me? Why leave me alive? The Queen's gaze never wavered. You think you're special, don't you? You believe your survival means something. Elias clenched his fists, anger boiling inside him. I want answers. The Queen regarded him coolly. You'll get them. But first, you should know something. You were believed dead. No one was supposed to survive the battle. And yet, here you are. Elias's mind raced. The words echoed in his head. You were supposed to be dead. He had been left for dead. And yet now he stood before the very Queen who had ordered his execution. What did she want from him? She took a step closer, her voice lowering to a dangerous whisper. This is no longer just about a mission, Captain. Your survival has become a symbol, and the consequences of it could destroy everything. Elias felt a chill run down his spine. He was alive, but it was clear that his survival was not by chance. Something bigger was at play, something far more dangerous than he could have ever imagined. The Queen's next words sent a shockwave through his heart. You've become more than just a soldier now. You're a weapon, and with that, everything changed. Captain Elias stood before the Zyran Queen, his heart pounding in his chest. The shock of being alive, after all the pain and death he had endured, had not yet worn off. He had been left to die. But now, he stood here, facing the very woman who had ordered his execution. Her cold, calculating eyes bored into him, as if she was trying to read his soul. Tell me, Captain, the Queen said, her voice as sharp as a blade. How did you survive? Elias didn't know what to say. The memories of the ambush flooded his mind. The blood, the screams, and the overwhelming pain. He remembered falling, and then nothing. How could he explain what he had no words for? He had been dead. He had felt his life slipping away, and then this. I don't know, Elias finally admitted, his voice steady despite the chaos in his mind. One moment, I was on the battlefield. The next, I woke up here. The Queen's eyes narrowed as she took a slow step toward him. You expect me to believe that? That you just woke up? Elias didn't flinch. Believe it or not, it's the truth. The Queen seemed to consider his words for a moment before she let out a soft, almost amused laugh. Fascinating. You humans are resilient, aren't you? Elias didn't respond. He had seen that kind of arrogance before, from the Zyran soldiers, who thought their empire was unbeatable. It sickened him. The Queen might look regal and composed, but Elias could feel the underlying fear in her voice. She wasn't just curious about his survival, she was terrified of it. You're not the first to return from death, Captain, the Queen said, her tone taking on a more sinister edge. But you are the first human to do so. Do you have any idea what that means? Elias shook his head. No, but I'm starting to get the feeling that I'm not supposed to be here. The Queen smiled, a cold, cruel smile. Exactly. You weren't supposed to survive. Your mission was a failure. Your people failed. And now, you are a threat. Elias felt a surge of anger, but he forced himself to stay calm. I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask to be brought back. The Queen's smile faded, and she stepped back, regarding him with a new sense of curiosity. Perhaps not. But now that you're here, you have a choice. You can serve me or you can die. There's no middle ground. Elias clenched his fists at his sides. I'll never serve you. The Queen's gaze hardened. We'll see. Without warning, she turned her back on him and waved her hand. 2 guards entered the room, each holding a strange device. They moved quickly, their hands grabbing Elias and forcing him toward the door. Come with us, one of them ordered. Elias struggled, but their grip was too strong. He was pushed through the hallways of the palace, his mind racing. What had he gotten himself into? He had no answers, no idea why he was still alive, and now he was being dragged through this alien world with no choice but to obey. They led him to a large, dark room. The walls were covered with strange, glowing symbols, and in the center of the room was a large metal chair. It looked like something from a nightmare. The guards motioned for him to sit. "Sit," one of them repeated, this time with a hint of threat in his voice. Elias glared at them but took a seat, knowing that fighting back in this situation wouldn't help. As soon as he did, the guards strapped him into the chair, and one of them activated a console nearby. Suddenly, the room was filled with a soft humming sound, and Elias felt a strange sensation in his chest. The air seemed to thicken, and he couldn't breathe properly. His heart began to race as the device connected to his body. He gasped, feeling the pressure on his chest intensify. "What are you doing to me?" Elias demanded, struggling to breathe. The guard smirked. "We're just running a few tests. We need to see what makes you special." The lights in the room flickered as the device hummed louder. Elias's body tensed as waves of energy pulsed through him. It was unlike anything he had ever felt before. His muscles ached, and his mind became clouded. He tried to focus, but the pain was too overwhelming. "You're stronger than any human we've encountered," the guard said, observing the data on a screen. "And faster. How is this possible?" Elias gritted his teeth, his vision blurry. He had no answers for them. He had no idea how he had survived, let alone how his body had changed. But one thing was certain. This was no ordinary survival. Whatever had saved him had done more than just heal his wounds. The humming sound suddenly stopped, and the pressure on his chest eased. The guards released him from the chair, and Elias stumbled forward, gasping for air. "That's enough," the other guard said. "The Queen will want to know the results." Elias was shoved to his feet again, still dizzy from the energy that had been coursing through his body. He didn't have much time to think before the guards pushed him out of the room and back down. The long hallways. As they led him back to the Queen's chamber, Elias's mind was racing. He had no answers, but something told him that his survival wasn't just a twist of fate. He was being used for something far more dangerous than he could imagine. And the more he learned, the more he realized that the Queen had no intention of letting him go. The moment they reached the Queen's chamber, she was waiting for him. Her gaze was intense as she looked him over, her eyes lingering on the subtle changes in his appearance. "You've been altered," she observed, her voice cold. "This is not just about your survival. You've been changed in ways we can't explain." Elias locked eyes with her. "And what do you plan to do with me now?" The Queen smiled, but it was a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You're going to help me, Captain, whether you like it or not." The air in the Queen's chamber felt heavy as Elias stood before her. His body still hummed with the strange energy from the tests, and his mind was racing. The Queen's eyes were fixed on him, her gaze both curious and calculating. She had never seen anything like him before, alive after a battle that had left no survivors. But now, standing before her, he was more than just a soldier. He was something else, something different, something dangerous. Elias crossed his arms, trying to mask the tremor in his limbs. "You've got what you wanted. I'm alive. Now, what do you plan to do with me?" The Queen studied him carefully, her sharp eyes narrowing. "You don't understand, Captain. You're not just alive, you're a symbol. And not just for your people, for the entire galaxy." Elias didn't know what she meant by that, but he could see the fear in her eyes. The Queen wasn't just angry at his survival. She was terrified. "A symbol? For who? The Zyran Empire?" The Queen's lips curled into a tight smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "No, Captain, not for us. For you, for humans. Your survival is something the galaxy cannot ignore. Elias felt a cold shiver run down his spine. What had happened to him? What had made him different? He had been on the brink of death, and now he was standing here in front of the Queen. Alive, yes, but changed in ways he couldn't explain. I don't want to be anyone's symbol, Elias said, his voice steady. I just want to understand why I'm still here. The Queen's expression softened slightly, though her gaze remained intense. You're the first human to survive the impossible. You should feel honored. Honored? Elias shook his head, his anger flaring. I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask to be used as some kind of weapon for your empire. The Queen took a step closer, her tone becoming more serious. You don't have a choice anymore, Captain. You're part of something much larger than yourself now. Elias clenched his fists at his sides. I will never be part of your empire. The Queen's eyes flashed, but she quickly regained her composure. We shall see. She turned her back on him and motioned for the guards to approach. They stepped forward, their weapons at the ready. Elias took a step back, his mind racing. What were they going to do to him now? Take him to the holding chamber, the Queen ordered, her voice cold. The guards grabbed Elias by the arms and pulled him away, their grip strong and unyielding. As they walked down the long, dark hallway, Elias couldn't help but feel the weight of the situation closing in around him. The Queen had no intention of letting him go, and he was beginning to realize that his survival had put him at the center of something much bigger than he had ever imagined. The holding chamber was dimly lit, with metal walls that seemed to press in on him from every side. It was a small, cold room, nothing like the grand chambers he had seen earlier. The guards shoved him inside and locked the door behind him. Elias sat down on the cold floor, trying to collect his thoughts. He had been captured by the Zyran Empire, but he had no idea why they were so interested in him. He wasn't special. He wasn't a hero. He was just a soldier who had survived when he shouldn't have. He closed his eyes, trying to block out the noise of the guards outside. It wasn't. Long before the door opened again, and the woman who had saved him entered. She was the one who had brought him here, the one who had spoken to him when he first awoke in the strange room. I didn't think I'd see you again, Elias said, looking up at her. His voice was a little softer now, but the anger was still there. She gave him a small, sad smile. I never meant for things to get so complicated. Who are you? Elias asked, his voice steady but full of suspicion. Why did you save me? The woman hesitated, as if considering her words carefully. I didn't save you, Captain. I only made sure you were brought here. The rest, that's something you'll have to understand for yourself. Elias frowned. Understand what? Why am I here? Why did the Queen bring me back? The woman stepped closer, her eyes filled with a deep sadness. Because of what you represent. You've become a symbol of hope, Captain, for your people and for the galaxy. Elias shook his head in confusion. I don't understand. What hope? I was a dead man. You were, she agreed. But now you're something else. Something greater. Elias stood up, frustration rising in his chest. What are you talking about? I don't want to be part of this war. I don't want to be a symbol for anyone. The woman reached out and placed a hand on his arm, her touch gentle but firm. You don't have a choice, Elias. You've been chosen. Chosen for what? He asked, his voice tight. She took a deep breath before speaking again. To stop something terrible. Something worse than the Zyran Empire, something that threatens every living being in the galaxy. Elias stared at her, the weight of her words sinking in. He had no idea what she meant, but something in her eyes told him that she was telling the truth. He didn't know why he had been saved, or why the Queen had brought him back, but he knew one thing for certain. His life would never be the same again. The woman stepped back, her expression serious. The Queen is not your enemy, Elias. She is part of the solution. But you must understand that there are forces out there that are far beyond her power. Forces that want to see the galaxy burn. Elias took a step toward her, his mind racing. What forces? What do they want? I can't say, she replied softly. Not yet, but you'll have to trust me. The answers will come in time. Elias clenched his fists, his determination growing. Then I'll make sure I'm ready for whatever comes next. The days in the holding chamber felt like weeks to Captain Elias. Every day was the same, quiet, lonely, and filled with uncertainty. The guards came and went, bringing him food and information, but they never gave him answers. The Queen's orders were clear. He was to be kept isolated, a prisoner of his own survival. But Elias couldn't shake the feeling that he was being kept in the dark on purpose. Every time he saw the Queen, he could feel the weight of her gaze on him. She was watching him, studying him, waiting for something he didn't understand. Then, one day, something changed. The woman who had saved him, the one who had brought him here, appeared again in the doorway of his cell. This time, her expression was different. There was no sadness, no hesitation. She looked almost determined. You're coming with me, she said, her voice firm. Elias didn't question her. He had grown tired of waiting. Where are we? Going? To the Queen, she replied. She has something to show you. Elias felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He had seen the Queen many times, but this felt different. It was as if everything that had happened so far was leading up to this moment. He had been kept isolated for a reason, and now, it seemed, the time had come to face the truth. The woman led him down long hallways, through grand chambers filled with alien soldiers and strange technology. Elias was silent, but his mind raced. What could the Queen possibly want to show him? And why now? They finally arrived at a large chamber, its walls lined with glowing symbols and unfamiliar machinery. In the center of the room stood the Queen, her regal posture commanding the space around her. She turned as they entered, her sharp eyes focusing on Elias. You've come, the Queen said, her voice cold but not unkind. Good. Elias stood still, his gaze fixed on her. What is this about? He asked. What do you want from me? The Queen didn't answer right away. Instead, she motioned for the woman to step aside, revealing a large holographic screen in the center of the room. The screen flickered to life, showing images of a vast galaxy, planets, and star systems that Elias didn't recognize. But what caught his attention was the symbol in the center of the map, a dark, swirling vortex that seemed to pulse with energy. This, the Queen said, pointing to the vortex, is the reason you're here, Captain. Elias stepped closer, his eyes narrowing. What is it? Another enemy? The Queen's expression grew serious. No, something much worse. This is the rift, the source of a power that threatens not only your people, but every living being in this galaxy. Elias frowned, his mind struggling to make sense of what he was seeing. The rift? What does it have to do with me? The Queen turned away from the screen, her voice lowering. Everything. Your survival, your return from death, is tied to this rift. The forces that control it are ancient, older than the Zyran Empire, older than your Earth, and they are growing stronger. Elias felt a chill run down his spine. You're saying I was brought back because of this rift? Why? The Queen's gaze locked onto his, her eyes hard. Because you are the only one who can stop it. Elias took a step back, confusion and disbelief washing over him. Me? How? The Queen turned back to the screen, her fingers tracing the holographic map. The rift is a doorway, Captain. It's the opening to a dark force that has been lying dormant for millennia, and now it is awakening. The Zyran Empire, along with other powers in the galaxy, have tried to harness that power, but they've failed. Only someone with the strength to survive the impossible can stand against it. Elias shook his head. This doesn't make sense. I'm just a soldier. I don't have powers. I'm not some kind of hero. The Queen's lips curled into a faint smile. You may not realize it yet, but you're more than just a soldier now. The power that saved you, that brought you back, is the same power that can stop the rift. You were chosen for a reason, Captain. And now, you must learn to use that power. Elias felt the weight of her words settle over him like a storm. His mind raced. He had no idea what she was talking about, but something deep inside him knew she wasn't lying. He had been brought back for a reason, and it wasn't just to survive, it was to fight. What do I have to do? Elias asked, his voice steady despite the chaos in his mind. The Queen looked at him, her eyes filled with a strange mix of hope and fear. You will have to enter the rift, Captain. You will have to face the darkness inside it. But you cannot do it alone. You will need allies, and you will need to learn to control the power within you. Elias stood still, trying to process everything. The Queen was asking him to do something impossible, to walk into the heart of an ancient force and stop it. But what choice did he have? He couldn't go back to his old life. The world he had known was gone, and now he was part of something much larger, something that could determine the fate of the entire galaxy. I'll do it, Elias said finally, his voice resolute. I'll stop the rift, but I won't do it for you. I'll do it for Earth, and for everyone who's counting on me. The Queen nodded, a small, approving smile tugging at the corners of her lips. Good. We'll begin preparing you immediately. Time is running out. Elias felt a surge of determination. He didn't know what lay ahead, but one thing was certain. He had no intention of failing. Not now. Not after everything he had been through. The galaxy was in danger, and he was the only one who could stop it. As the Queen turned to leave, Elias stood there, staring at the holographic map of the galaxy. The rift was waiting, and it was up to him to face it. Captain Elias stood at the edge of the Zyran Empire's capital, staring out over the vast city that stretched before him. His mind was still reeling from everything he had learned. The rift, the ancient power threatening the galaxy, and his role in stopping it. It was all too much to comprehend. But there was no time for doubt now. Time was running out, and he had no choice but to move forward. He had been training for days under the Queen's supervision, learning to control the strange power that had brought him back from death. The power was unlike anything he had ever known. It surged through his body, giving him strength and speed far beyond what any normal human should have. But it was also unpredictable, and Elias was still unsure how to fully control it. The Queen had told him that the only way to stop the rift was to enter it, face the darkness inside it, and destroy it from within. It sounded impossible, but Elias knew that there was no other choice. The fate of the galaxy rested on his shoulders. But there was one thing that still bothered him: the Zyran Empire. The Queen, Alaris, had made it clear that she needed his help, but Elias had no trust in her. The Zyran Empire had been an enemy of Earth for years, and even though Alaris claimed to want to stop the forces behind the rift, Elias couldn't shake the feeling that her motives weren't entirely pure. As he stood there, lost in thought, the woman who had saved him approached. Her name was Ceres, and she had been his guide through this strange new world. She had explained everything to him: how the Zyran Empire had come to power, how they had tried to harness the power of the rift, and how they had failed. Ceres had also been the one to bring him to the Queen, and although Elias didn't fully understand her reasons, he had learned to trust her. "You look lost," Saris said, her voice soft but steady. Elias turned to face her. "I'm not sure what to believe anymore." Saris nodded. "I know. But you have to trust that the Queen is not your enemy. Not in this." Elias looked at her, skeptical. "How can I trust her? She's the leader of the empire that has been fighting my people for years, and now she wants me to stop the rift. But why? What's in it for her?" Saris hesitated for a moment, then stepped closer. "The Queen isn't like the others. She wants peace. She wants to stop the destruction the rift will bring. The Zyran Empire has been corrupted, but Alaris, she is trying to change it. If you help her, Elias, you'll be helping more than just your people. You'll be helping the entire galaxy." Elias took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words. He still wasn't sure he could trust the Queen, but Saris believed in her. And Elias had learned that sometimes trusting others was the only way forward. "All right," Elias said, his voice firm. "But if I'm going to do this, I need to know more. I need to understand the full truth. What is the rift, and why is it so dangerous?" Saris's expression grew serious. "The rift is not just a doorway, Elias. It is a tear in the fabric of reality itself. It was created long ago by an ancient civilization that tried to control the power of the stars, but they failed. And now that power is awakening again. The Zyran Empire, the Federation, and many other forces in the galaxy are all trying to claim it. But none of them understand the true danger. The rift is not something to be controlled. It is something to be destroyed." Elias nodded slowly, trying to process everything. "And you really think I can do that? Go into the rift and destroy it?" "I know you can," Saris said, her voice full of conviction. "You were chosen for a reason, Elias. Your survival was not by accident. You have the strength to face whatever is inside the rift. But you won't be able to do it alone." Elias frowned. "What do you mean?" Saris stepped back, her eyes scanning the horizon. "You'll need help. And not just from the Queen. There are others who can help you. Others who understand the rift better than anyone in the Zyran Empire." Elias followed her gaze, his heart racing. "Who? Who else knows about the rift?" Saris hesitated, then spoke quietly. "The Federation, the one group that has studied the rift for centuries. They have the knowledge you need, but they won't trust you unless you prove yourself." Elias's mind was spinning. The Federation, the Zyran Empire's greatest rival, was the last group he ever thought he'd need help from. But Saris was right. He couldn't do this alone. If he wanted to stop the rift, he needed all the knowledge he could get, and that meant working with the Federation, no matter how difficult it might be. "All right," Elias said, his decision made. "How do we find them?" Saris's lips curled into a small smile. "I have contacts. I know where to find them." Elias didn't know if he could fully trust Saris, but he knew one thing for certain. He couldn't do this without her. She had been the only one to show him any kind of understanding in this strange new world. And now she was offering him a chance to work with the Federation, the one group that might have the answers they needed. "I'm in," Elias said, his voice steady. Saris nodded. "Good. We leave tomorrow." As they turned to walk back toward the Queen's palace, Elias couldn't shake the feeling that things were moving too quickly. But one thing was clear. The stakes were higher than ever. The rift was awakening, and if they didn't act fast, the entire galaxy could be doomed. Elias was the only one who could stop it. But he would need more than just power. He would need allies, trust, and a whole new understanding of the galaxy itself. He had already come so far. Now he would have to push even harder to save everything he knew. Elias stood at the edge of the battlefield, staring out at the vast, dark sky. The stars above were barely visible, shrouded by the strange clouds that had gathered around the rift. It was as though the very atmosphere was warping, reflecting the terrible power that lay beyond. The rift pulsed with an eerie light, its swirling darkness calling to him. He had come so far, faced so much, and now it was time to face what awaited inside it. His heart pounded in his chest, and his mind raced with questions. Was he truly ready for this? Could he really destroy something as powerful as the rift? He had trained, he had learned, but the fear remained. It was only natural. The stakes were too high, and the weight of responsibility pressed down on him like an unshakable mountain. Beside him stood Ceres, her expression unreadable. She had been with him since the beginning, guiding him through the unknown, helping him understand the strange power that had brought him back to life. Together they had traveled across galaxies, gathering allies, learning everything they could about the rift and the dark forces that sought to control it. "You ready for this?" Ceres asked, her voice steady but carrying an edge of concern. She wasn't worried about herself. She had already made peace with the dangers they faced. But Elias was different. He was human, and the rift's power was unlike anything anyone had ever faced before. Elias glanced at her, his jaw set in determination. "I have no choice. The rift is too dangerous. It has to be stopped." Ceres nodded, but Elias could see the doubt in her eyes. She had never fully explained what the rift was. She had told him it was a tear in the fabric of reality itself, a doorway to unimaginable power that, if left unchecked, would destroy everything. But now, as they stood on the edge of the unknown, Elias wondered if even the Queen, Ceres, or the Federation could truly comprehend the full scale of the danger they faced. As if reading his thoughts, Ceres spoke again. "We've come this far, Elias. You're the only one who can do this. The only one who survived. And you're stronger than any of us realize." Elias didn't answer. His mind was elsewhere, preparing for the battle that lay ahead. The rift was calling to him, and he could feel the power within him growing stronger with each passing moment. He wasn't sure if it was the strange force inside him or just sheer will, but he knew one thing. The galaxy's future depended on him. The ground beneath them shook, and Elias snapped to attention. The moment had arrived. Across the battlefield, a fleet of ships hovered in the air, their dark forms casting shadows over the terrain. The Zyran Empire's soldiers were ready, led by Queen Alaris herself, who stood tall on the front lines. Her presence was commanding, but Elias couldn't forget that she had her own reasons for being here. The Queen, though an ally for now, had her own ambitions, and he wasn't sure if he could fully trust her. "We're here to stop the rift, not fight each other," Elias muttered to himself, trying to push aside the doubt. They couldn't afford to turn on each other now. Ceres placed a hand on his shoulder, on his focus. "The rift is our enemy, not the Queen. You're not here to fight her. You're here to save us all." Elias nodded, taking a deep breath as he stepped forward. He could feel the strange energy inside him, the power he had been learning to control, surging in response to the dark force before him. It was time. The Queen's voice echoed across the battlefield, booming over the sound of engines and troops preparing for the coming battle. "It is time. We fight for the survival of the galaxy. Do not hesitate. Destroy the rift." The battle began. Fires erupted, and the ground shook as the Zyran soldiers charged forward, their weapons drawn and their eyes filled with determination. Elias, however, didn't move toward the front lines. Instead, he turned toward the rift, his focus solely on the swirling darkness ahead. He knew this was his fight. This was the moment he had been training for. As he approached the rift, the air around him grew heavier, thicker. The strange power within him seemed to pulse in response, as if it were alive, drawing him closer. He could feel the rift's dark influence pressing against his mind, trying to take control, but Elias refused to let it. He had come this far, and he wouldn't let fear or doubt stop him now. The ground beneath him cracked open, and a deep, unnatural voice filled the air. "You cannot stop me, human. You are nothing compared to the power that lies within me." Elias gritted his teeth. "I'm not here to stop you. I'm here to destroy you." He stepped forward, his hands glowing with the strange power that had saved him. He didn't know how it worked, but he could feel the energy coursing through him. It was as though the universe itself was in his hands. And with that power, he would do what no one else could. He would close the rift. The rift responded, its dark energy flaring up in opposition, trying to consume him. But Elias stood firm, the light from his hands growing brighter, pushing back against the darkness. "This ends now." With a roar, he thrust his hands forward, unleashing everything he had learned, everything he had become. The power exploded. Outward, a wave of light and energy crashing into the rift. For a moment, the world seemed to pause, as if holding its breath. Then, the rift began to collapse in on itself. The darkness that had threatened to tear the galaxy apart started to fade, the edges unraveling, pulling back into nothingness. Elias's power continued to flow, but it wasn't enough just to contain the rift. He had to close it. Forever. With a final, desperate push, Elias sent the last of his energy into the rift. There was a blinding flash, and then silence. The battlefield was still. The rift was gone. The darkness had been pushed back, and the threat had been destroyed. Elias fell to his knees, exhausted. He could feel the strange energy fading from his body, leaving him drained. His vision blurred, and he could barely stay conscious. But he knew that it was over. The galaxy had been saved. Saris rushed to his side, her face filled with concern. "You did it, Elias. You stopped the rift." Elias barely managed a smile, his voice barely a whisper. "We all did." As the battle raged around them, with the Zyran forces regrouping and their enemies falling back, Elias knew that this was only the beginning. But for now, he had done what no one else could. He had stopped the rift, and in doing so, he had proven that humanity could face any challenge, no matter how impossible it seemed. The galaxy was safe, for now.